there is some sort of toe pressure,
Yeah.
but then like you can see like clearly his hands are going forward. His bottom hand is like, I mean, the palm is facing upwards, but I do
Yeah.
think that like initial when he's has it here, I think now you're having a little bit of that like I'm pushing. I like to say like you're pushing into the toe and you're starting to create that kind of torque and flex of the stick.
Hey everybody, Mike here with NorCan Hockey. Thanks for tuning in and thanks for the continued support watching the channel. I'm going to try something new here going forward. For years, I've just done the video analysis where there's nobody on the screen. It's just me kind of talking in the background. But I'm going to try doing some podcast style ones. For the first one, I brought on Brian Slugocki, who's down in Phoenix, Arizona. Brian works with the Tucson Roadrunners and Utah Hockey Club. Also skates Austin Matthews in the summer along with some other NHL players. The great thing about Brian is he hasn't only worked with the pros, but he's worked in youth hockey long enough that, he's got a really good understanding of cradle to grave for player development. As here's a player at the top level, what would the building blocks be? And here's a player halfway through their journey, and here are some of the signs that it's going to go this way or that way, or some of the indicators on their development pathway. So we always have excellent conversations. This first one is just talking about shooting and scoring theory. We throw some video up, talk about the videos, draw on them, and then also bring it back to some of our experiences and beliefs with things we've done over the years. So if you can, have a watch through the video and leave me some feedback. Like, subscribe, and for sure leave a comment. Let me know if this format is something that you think would be interesting going forward. I'm really excited about it, just to be able to bring on different guests and have differing opinions, and see things through a different lens, and hopefully have some banter back and forth to kind of get into some of those polarizing topics and argue both sides of them, rather than me just telling you what my opinion is and leaving it at that. So really excited about this. Interested to hear your feedback. Thanks and enjoy. Yeah. So the topics I had was that, like, blade travel. We talked about how's the puck traveling on
Yep.
or down the blade, and then bottom hand downward versus forward push, inertial loading. So like loading the stick with speed rather than into the ice, and then on edge and bouncers. Those were kind of the four subjects I had. So
Mm-hmm.
did you want to start somewhere?
Why don't we? I'm just bottom hand is kind of sticking out because I know we've talked about that before.
Yeah. So what's your for bottom hand? Do you this is always the polarizing one. Do you teach downward push or forward push?
Um, I think in like I mess around with it a lot. I do think in general it's more of a. I think it fluctuates between the two. I don't think you can like. I think if you're pushing straight down, you're just gonna spend too much time loading the stick, and you're really not gonna go. Like I don't think you're really gonna release the puck with much like quickness.
Yeah.
But if you're like finishing forward and up, I think you might limit your ability to shoot lower shots. So I almost kind of say like I think there's an initial loading where you're like pushing down into
Yeah.
the stick into the blade, but then yes, it is like almost like a curve type of a push versus like strictly I'm pushing out or down. Like it's somewhere in the middle for me.
Yeah. Do you have some clips on it?
Yeah, let me okay, so I think this clip especially is really good for just kind of showing um, a lot of things that he does really well here with his hands, his foot placement, where he's putting the puck. I'll let it play, and then I'll kind of slow down the second view.
Okay.
So what I see a lot, especially in this view here,
Yeah.
is when he does have that like I think there's an initial like there is some sort of toe pressure,
Yeah.
but then like you can see like clearly his hands are going forward. His bottom hand is like I mean the palm is facing upwards, but I do
Yeah.
think that like initial when he's has it here, I think now you're having a little bit of that like I'm pushing. I like to say like you're pushing into the toe and you're starting to create that kind of torque and flex of the stick.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, this is always a really good example of like one, having your feet square to the net, which is a lot of players struggle with that. He has a very good like lateral pull, versus like some. I mean, maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but like some players will almost, they cannot get this puck to come this far into their feet. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of that has to do with his hands that are clearly away from his body. Yes, you can shoot at times with your hands closer, but when your hands are this far away from your body, I think it allows you to really pull the puck across, on that kind of diagonal across your body.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in general, yeah, I do think the bottom hand, it's, I think in I've started to more, it is a little bit more forward, but I don't think you can eliminate a total like bottom hand push to start, I would say.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I landed with it too. I was hoping we'd have more of an argument on this one, but but that's kind of how I see it too. It's almost like a preload or a scratch. Like right, like when you've got that downward pressure on the toe, that's when there's like the hand may be pushing down a little bit with that pressure on the toe, but then after that puck is pulled in, then it's that quickness and violence of that twitch that that's where the flex of the stick comes from. Right, when you're standing with a hockey stick in the store trying to buy one, well, you have to push straight down to check the
Yes.
flex on the stick. But when you're shooting, it's a very different thing because of the speed and the inertia. So the stick loads differently when you're shooting a puck than it does when you're testing it in the
Yes.
store. So
That,
it's a very
that's a
different movement.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, and I got some clips here of like that inertia loading or how sticks load just by speed of hands versus, right, like, again, when I was a kid dating myself, but it was all wood sticks and they were
Hmm.
pieces of lumber, and everybody said, well, like, get your hand lower and push down harder. And I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense, but like I see it more as you're setting your depth initially, and then as you're pushing forward, it's like a match. You know what I mean? Like lighting a
Yeah.
match, how
Yes.
you
Yes.
friction and then a flick. So that's kind of
Yes.
where I've landed with it is, yeah, that downward pressure is good initially, or to go into a store and test a stick, but and on a slap shot, like if it's a full
Yeah.
clapper, there is still some arc motion to come down and get that flex in the stick. But as soon as that initial arc hits the bottom, then it's forward again with the bottom hand. So
Yeah, I think that's actually the match. That's a really good analogy for that, because I was trying to think like, if you spend too much time pushing down, like I was saying before, it does take too long. But I mean, that was
yeah,
a great analogy for that. And I do think like, especially when it comes to slap shots, is like so many people are so upper body where they are just like pushing upwards, that I think you lose out on a lot of the technology of the stick and really the flex. And like, you do
yeah,
have to have a little bit of that, like, it's like golf, where I always tell guys like, you got to hit behind the ball, like hit 3 inches, 2 inches behind the puck. You get that flex, and now you need to like release it. Now that tension needs to go away. It's like
yeah.
that's part of that like coming back up in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And that, like, that match analogy is basically the same thing. If you go to light a match, you have to push downwards on it to set your depth. So that's your preloading, is to push down. And then you're basically just, maintaining that tension, but pushing forward. And then
Yeah.
the match lights on its own. So yeah, you have to come down with it to get it set. But after it's set, now you're just moving forward
Yeah.
and
I
creating
think
that flick.
um, my only thing, and I want to see some video after this, is
Yeah.
like, if you're doing more of that like saucer shot or that pop shot, then like where your hands are going to be out in front of you, like then that's more of just like a really strong bottom hand, and I think you are going up. Like, I think
Yeah.
if the puck is behind you, yes, I think you're going to have that slight, like we were saying, pushing down first and then kind of elevating. But if it's out in front, I like to tell guys like, it's just, you have a strong bottom hand and you're just like pop pop, like it's,
Yeah.
there really
Yeah.
isn't, you cannot like push down when it's out in front of you.
Yeah.
It has to be
Yeah.
a strong bottom hand.
I'll share my screen. I got a couple of those. I don't know if I've ever
Yeah.
showed this video
This is
before. This is
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a STS hockey guy
Yep. Yep.
out of Boston, and I hopefully, if this does come out, he's not too upset about this. But I've always really enjoyed his content, and I stole this off of his Instagram. So, what did you have on it?
Um, I used to, because like he doesn't really share anything anymore, does he?
No, no.
Okay, yeah. So I remember several years ago I used to watch these a lot because it was so weird, so different than what I was used to, and I was like,
Yeah,
what? How the hell is he like shooting it so hard? And one thing I was gonna ask you about before this is because I've noticed that like that modern hockey guy who shoots a lot, like
yeah,
there's things there that I really like, but I'm also curious. He never shoots low. Like that's where I'm like, okay, this is great to go up, but like,
yeah,
what if you got to shoot over a pad? I don't see. I want to see him. He shoots it very well. He shoots it very quick, but
yeah,
can you now shoot it like everything is with the net flipped over? And I'm like, okay, that's impressive, but again, I want to see like a different
yeah,
shot. But
yeah. he, he's kind of like STS was the guy I was really curious about in the past, and I kept messaging him saying, "Hey, would you come out and work with Hockey Alberta? Like, can we get you out
yeah,
for a camp? What's it going to take?" Because of course I wanted to learn from him, and like modern hockey's doing a really good job now, and he seems to be sharing where,
yeah,
yeah, it's. I think it's just so progressive, and it's something that I had as a blind spot, and it's great to be able to see what the best are doing and learn
yeah,
from it. And I mean, in a way, it's he almost should protect what he has there because he does seem to have a little bit of a niche, but it's great to be able to steal something from it.
yeah,
But so this is like this was the first one, the initial one that stood out to me, and I've used this in when I do shooting sessions around here with teams and organizations and whatnot. But it's like the stick whips just with inertia, and of course it looks crazy when it's in slow motion. But this is where like that like upper body power and speed of hands is so important. So there's no downward motion at all. Like you can see here, the stick is flexed at this moment, and like he hasn't even touched the ground yet. And that's where to me it's you see this and you go, okay, well, yeah, it's just a kid with a 20 flex. That's why he's able to do this. The stick is just turning into a bow and arrow. There's no travel on the blade. He's just getting flex from pulling back top hand, pushing forward bottom hand, and the stick's loading up just by the inertia of how fast that goes. And then, of course, I presented it, and people were like, "Oh yeah, it's just a kid with a 20 flex." And then, just like you were talking about before, is if the puck's out in front of you, it's that violent pop. So Tarasenko over there gets it, receives the puck, and again, just eyes down on reception, which is fine, and then eyes come up, and now it's just that violent twist. And
yeah,
you can see, like that's the one probably you're talking about exactly, is there's no downward pressure from that. It's just speed of hands and kind of violence in that stick to create that whip through inertia. So, there's no downward pressure there at all. It's just the speed of hands and diving board mentality where that puck just flies off of his stick by inertia loading.
yeah. That's a good.
So,
That's a good clip of that. Yeah,
and then this guy too, I don't know what the copyrights are in these, if somebody's going to come after us or not. I can always clip it out, but this KSH, similar, like you can see how the energy is loaded into the stick just with speed. There's really
interesting.
there's no touch on the ice at all. Like it would be just, you remember like playing floor hockey in high school, the sticks were so whippy that like if you just like went too fast with it, the puck would go through your
Yeah,
stick. So it's just like that twitch, that bottom hand is turning and pushing forward, and the stick is already loaded here. Not loaded near as much as when it makes contact with the tire, of course, but it's just kind of that theory of you load the energy into the stick just with quickness and speed of hands.
yeah. One thing I saw that I was watching that how to hockey or Jeremy with the guy from Modern Hockey, and he made a good point that um, like you want to keep your blade connected to the ice like the whole time. Even like you say, yeah, you lift your heel up, and then when you're like following through, shooting with it, like if you maintain that contact with the ice, you maintain that sort of that tension, that flex in the stick. And if you come up to try to get more of like a, I say like a whack or a slap of it, like you
Yeah.
lose some of that tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the STS clip, that was a good example of like, yeah, just a quick. It, I say like from a teaching perspective, it's really difficult to get some players to understand like that sort of like
Yeah.
violence when they're shooting, or that quick
Yeah.
twitch.
Yeah.
Like some players are just so used to being so tight to their body and not like. It's really hard to get older players, especially. I mean, all players, to get
Yeah.
their hands out to get that motion.
Yeah, it was funny. I did a presentation with there's a new training facility that opened up here that does everything. They've got a skating treadmill, physio, all of that stuff. And I went in and did a presentation to their coaches on shooting. They got shooting lanes there, and there was guys my age and even older that are instructors there. And then there was some, apprentice instructors that were just finished probably playing U18, and we went in the shooting lanes and started demoing some of it, and all of the guys that are my age, and because we don't have the fast twitch muscles anymore, it was so much harder, and everybody kind of defaulted to a wrist shot or
Yeah.
blade travel because they couldn't get the flex of the stick with fast twitch muscles. And then this U18 kid jumped in there, and like it was so fast that I couldn't even tell. I was like, I should have my iPad here so I can record and just like be able to translate that it's the speed and the inertia that's doing this. It's not anything else, right?
Yeah.
And so it was real funny. And then the older instructors came to me and said, yeah, like I see this and I'm trying it, but I just don't have it in my body anymore. So yeah, it's so crazy to kind of go through it and have these. And like I've done shooting with female teams for years now, and I think that's the number one thing is they want to use a stiffer stick where they're not going to be losing those puck battles, but then they can't get that full whip out of it with the speed of hands. We did a shooting session last spring, and one girl had a 35 or a 40 flex stick, and I videotaped all of them, and she was shooting the best because she could actually get the stick to bend. The other girls, it was using a 2x4, and they were just kind of slapping against it, and there was no mechanical advantage of using a bow and arrow. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
No, I tell guys sometimes like it should be easy to shoot. You really shouldn't be like squeezing and flexing, and like it should be
yeah,
relatively easy for like, and that's why the flex is so important. That
yeah,
yeah, because I mean, I'm sure I always would. So when I was coaching 8, 9, 10, 11 year olds, um, a lot of those kids would get their parents or their older brothers like cut down stick, and I couldn't even flex these sticks. And I'm like, I started to think this is really going to set them up for long-term struggles if like there's no sort of whippiness to when they're shooting or passing, so they have to get their whole body into like every shot, and so you get these
yeah,
big wind-ups. So finding that flex that is easy enough for you, like I'm gonna show you a video here,
yeah,
because I think finding the stick and the blade, the flex that works for you. I'm surprised there's not like more people who are really trying to like match, have a
yeah,
better, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I'll show you two different examples. Well, actually, this might be a good example just of me real quick of, I've shared this before of just working on like quickness, and so I purposely put the buckets in front of me so that I don't have a follow through. Now I shared this, like I think this was last year, and people were like, "What's wrong with the follow through?" I'm like, "There's nothing
you can
wrong with
full
a follow
screen.
through." Yeah, I just was like, trying to work on like very quick. I was really trying to work on like hands away from my body, having a minimal or almost like zero follow through,
Yeah,
because sometimes I've noticed that players, they almost like they use their follow through as a way to like still generate speed, or they're so used to having these like really high finishes. And so
yeah,
I just was kind of experimenting with like, I'm going to force these players to get all their power in a very short window,
yeah,
and really focus on like, I'm not really trying to use any other part of my body than just my hands. Like,
yeah,
these next few are good of it too. Like, yes, I'm not shooting it high. Like all these shots are pretty much low, but
Yeah.
this was just for me to work on like again what we were saying before. My blade stays or my toe pretty much stays in contact the whole time, and I'm just trying
Yeah.
to get that like quick kind of
Yeah.
whippiness.
Yeah.
Um, so I've liked that for of a drill, and then the other one I wanted to show you.
I really like that video too because it shows the stick going forward too, like it shows the mechanical advantage working,
Yeah,
where you're
yeah,
getting the whip in it, but on your first one there, like you can see the torsion and the flex in the stick actually going forward too. Like it's not
yeah,
only flexing behind, but it's also showing the unload phase. Like right there, you
yep,
can see the
yeah.
whippiness of the unload.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty. I mean, this is why 70 flex stick, 75.
Yeah.
It was very easy to use this stick. And so
Yeah.
this example, I might maybe zoom in just to tear, so it's
Yeah.
not obvious who it is. But it is, you'll see here.
Oh yeah.
I slow one of these down so you can really see how much, I think is like hands are out, like puck. There's a little bit of that separation again,
Yeah.
but you can see like his hands the whole time they're relatively going forward. I mean, like
Yeah.
now we've said like, but there is, I think, like
Right there.
here,
Yeah.
yes, that's
That's
where there's that push down forward, but
yeah.
now it's coming out away, and like that's a lot of players cannot do that. This sort of body shape, this positioning, this violence. But we were saying
Yeah.
before, as far as finding the right stick and flex,
Yeah.
I almost joke sometimes with kids, the wizard, you got to find your right wand and everything.
Yeah.
But like, it is when you get the right wand, it is a huge difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like those two examples for that.
Yeah, and there's even that debate going now a little bit about top hand, whether it should be out or whether it should be in. But I think it's just semantics a little bit where the top hand has to go out to come in, right?
Yep.
Like where it
Yeah.
finishes, you're not finishing with it out there. You're having to pop it out to get that pull range or that distance between your body so you can pull in violently. Like where Bedard has kind of changed it, right? Like he really pulls down and in and like almost ends up on his side or near his
Yeah.
belly button, where it used to be more of people wanted you to pull straight in like you were,
Yeah.
doing this, where he's like kind of chicken winging and pulling down and in. So I don't know what's right and wrong with that. It would make more sense to have your hand finishing in a protected area, but can you get as much leverage by
Yeah.
coming in there versus pulling straight back? And is he just an anomaly? But I see it more and more. It's not just him. You see a lot of players now who are really pulling in and ending tight to their body with their elbow and their hand. Hey,
Yeah. I
yeah,
think with the technology now of the sticks is there isn't one way to shoot a puck. There's
yes,
like so many different ways to really be effective, and like I say sometimes, like I haven't studied Bedard like really in depthly, but yes, when he gets it into that pull shot, like it is a laser. But like, does that shooting mechanic limit him potentially doing like crossover shots, or can he not? Like, does he have that quick snapshot? Like, I don't know. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't.
yeah,
And that's one reason why I think guys like Matthews and Kucherov and McKinnon, they have a wide variety of shooting skills, and it's not just I got to get the
yeah,
puck into this position. And so whenever I
yeah,
hear like, okay, it's your hands, they need to be here, they need to be like they can be wherever. Yes, there's certain principles. I think in general, you need to have your top hand in front of your bottom hand because that creates flex. But then if the puck's out in front of you, like you're kind of even. So
yeah.
it's so situational.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And even shooting off of which foot, like that was one when I first started kind of digging into hockey years ago. When I first started doing clinics, it was probably like coach clinics was 12, 13 years ago. And I remember going around and talking about, like shooting off of the inside foot or what I call the inside foot, whatever's closest to your blade. So if I'm a lefty, shooting off the left foot. And the amount of pushback I got 13 years ago, that's the wrong foot. Like you can't shoot off of that foot. And it was like there's only one way to shoot, and there's a right and a wrong way. And I remember even some of the Hockey Canada stuff we did. We sat one time for probably an hour and a half with a group of really good skills people and just went like, well, what's even the terminology of it? Like, do we call it back foot, front foot, inside foot,
Yeah.
outside foot? Like, how do we even name this? And then from there, we kind of started building some things around it. But yeah, and then, I did a study. I think I watched 1,000 goals. I get up every Sunday morning and just did a tracking thing for one season. And when I got to 1,000 goals, I stopped, but I did a graph on how many goals in the NHL came off the inside foot, the outside foot, or slap shots or backhands. I think those were like the 4 or 5 criteria. And it was more off of the inside foot at that time than it was off of the outside foot. So, I had to kind of like make some visuals and some graphs around that and take them. And, when I was doing a clinic, I'd say, yeah, like here's 1,000 goals in the NHL and here's how it works out. It was very close. I think it was just over half. It was maybe 2 or 3% more off the inside foot than the outside foot. But
Yeah.
it just proved out that, yeah, like, and like as I was doing it, then I even had to make a category for no feet, where guys were coming in and they were doing that jump, almost like a little
Yeah.
jump, and they were in the air and snapping it off while they had no feet on the ground, and they'd land on their knees, and there's all kinds of different things. So it goes back to exactly what you're saying is, like, I think you just have to be an athlete and have to know that you can release a puck no matter where you are. But like, I was just actually watching some Matthews videos on, like, I was doing some arrivals, like working with players on video, saying like, you need to arrive at the right time, try to find free space, and you need to get it just on and off your stick. And he's just punching the puck sometimes. Like, it's not a shot
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
It's just a punch, or a bat, or like being able to take the energy from a puck going this way and just kind of like have that dexterity to push it at the right time and just put it into an area. It's not even a shot. It's just a redirect with forward motion, that shovel shot type thing. And so, yeah, I completely agree. Some of this stuff where we get so far into technique, I don't know how much it'll actually help you, because we know where goals are scored from, the inner slot. So how much power do you actually need in the inner slot versus good timing to arrive and being able to just redirect and pop the puck off your stick?
Yeah. I I've talked with a few different goalie coaches too about this, and I try to talk to some of the players. Yes, like if you get it into like the perfect posture and you pull the puck in, you might be able to shoot it, 90 miles per hour. But if it takes you a second to get it off, well, I'd rather you shoot it 80, 82 miles per hour, but now you can get it in 0.5 seconds off. And so, like,
Yeah.
really trying to get guys to understand that if the puck is coming from one side to the other, so a goalie has to track. Quickness is your best friend here. If you have to sacrifice 5% of your power, that's a better strategy than trying to like load it and get it into that perfect thing, right? Your perfect posture. And absolutely, like, I think you need to be comfortable. I mean, this is kind of the puck on edge and bouncing is just like, if the puck goes in, it doesn't matter how it went in. Like,
Yeah.
whatever, you need to just be able to shoot it from any sort of posture, positioning, where the puck is. And like, I've heard too, and I'm curious maybe if you've heard something similar, is like, if you can shoot a wobbly puck, or say you pushed it and it's slightly wobbly and then you're releasing it, it's almost harder for a goalie to track, because they're so used to this like cylindrical, or
Yeah.
it's always in this sort of pattern. Now if it's
Yeah.
wobbling, like, now a goalie has to like take an extra 0.2 seconds to like figure out the trajectory. You don't need to have a perfect shot to beat a goalie. You just need to have
Yeah.
like the quickness, accuracy helps. Like, there's certain trade-offs you can have. But again, talking about Matthews, like, he can shoot it from 2 feet, 1 feet, no feet. It's wobbling. It's like, if you want to be a good shooter, you got to be able to shoot like and be comfortable. And it's a mindset like, a lot of guys are like, they're not willing to shoot a puck that isn't in their wheelhouse. Like, I need to get it to this spot before I release it, where it's like, no, just like come down. Like, I say, shoot before you're ready, and the goalie's not going to be ready. Like, just be, you're in motion, or you're not looking, or like, that's when you can beat goalies a lot of times. I want to show you another clip or two. The thing I've tried to say, and I don't have a great term for it, is like a lateral change of angle versus like a vertical change of an angle. You find that, Matthews. I mean, like, both these shots. When I see this is, especially this one, I say this is a lateral, like, it's clearly going 3 to 4 feet inside his body.
Yeah.
And his footwork allows him to do this. But then when I look at like this clip of Brock Nelson, so like non-elite shooters, like still obviously in the NHL, but non-elite, like you'll see this first clip is the puck just pretty much stays
Linear.
it stays on the same line. Like this isn't a great example of like a vertical change, but like a lot of players think like they're changing their footwork. Like, oh look, I'm switching from right to left, but the puck doesn't move here.
No.
In my opinion, this is very easy for a goalie to save because the puck doesn't move. And another example is, I think it was Zegras here. Like, again, different releases, the replay is better. But the puck pretty much stays on that same line. This is not a great example of it. I just found it before. Yeah. He gets so wide that you have no chance of going short side or pulling it. Like, it's not that hard if you don't, like, change it, push it lateral. And so I didn't show many, like, vertical, but not many players actually do a big horizontal, like, change.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember that clip I posted on Larkin with his blade angle. It was during the Four Nations also, where he
that was a really interesting one,
and had it loaded and through the goalie's eyes, just the way he just rolled his blade and twisted it, it looked like he was going short side, and then at the last minute you could see that it just the blade angle changed. I think there has to be, especially at that level, there has to be an angle change or some deception or something to just give the goalie a cue that it's not going to be the shot that it looks like, or you need to delay their decision, or you need to keep them guessing. The good analogy for it is a 2-on-1. If I'm a defenseman and playing a 2-on-1, youth hockey, it says just take away the pass, like make sure, like leave the goalie the shooter. And then like youth hockey, they take it literally, and the defenseman will go skate and give the other guy a breakaway, right? And it's like, that's kind of what you want to get to, but you have to delay, like you have to keep the puck carrier guessing. Like you have to, make him think that you could be coming at him, and you want to, you want him to keep going through the Rolodex's decision tree as he's carrying that puck down, going like, is this guy coming at me? Can I make the pass? Should I be shooting? Rather than, oh, I've got a breakaway, right? And it's almost the same thing as that. You need to play that game with the goalie of, I'm not going to show you what I'm doing because you know what that looks like. I'm going to show you something else, or I'm going to put a little bit of something in there just to mess with your read, hey? And that's kind of the same thing. Is like I don't know if you can score linear like that. I mean, that guy, if he shoots that hard, if he gets inside the inner slot, well, yeah, maybe he's got a chance. He's probably scored a ton of goals like that just because of that extra power, but it probably doesn't translate to being an elite goal scorer. Like you need more than power, right? Yeah.
That's like you brought up a lot of interesting points there. Like with the power one, I really struggle with guys who are technically very good shooters because sometimes they're not open to like improving tactically how they shoot. Like I worked with a player last year who like the shot that we're talking about, like where it's just like your hands, like it was crazy. Like, I mean, he could pick a goalie off the ice. Like, I mean, it was impressive. He scored like 5 goals last year because the only way he knew how to shoot was in this position with his base wide. Like, yeah, if it was a wide open back door, like you're going to score. But like some of these guys who are so good or they're so strong, they're so fast, they don't score as much as you might think. Shooting it's not just how hard you can shoot it, but it's really hard to convince players that like you need to sacrifice a little bit of power to move a goalie, to manipulate them. Like, it's a frustrating thing that you can be like, success or being really good at something can really limit you, like getting better at it.
No, that's exactly it. That you used the word manipulation, and I think that's basically what it comes down to, right? Is can you manipulate, or are you just riding a trajectory of being bigger, stronger, faster, and not being able to be a puppeteer of the game, but just kind of existing in it, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking with your 2-on-1 is, and it's a semantic thing, but like I remember Daryl talked about this maybe 10, 12 years ago, and other people have said it too, but like you don't want to read and react. You want to dictate. I've tried to tell this to some of the players I work with, like you want the other team on a 2-on-1 on when you're like, if they have to think, they're gonna play slower. Like it's just the way.
Yeah.
If you have to react to somebody, you're gonna be slower. So you need to be thinking, on your 2-on-1 example, you need to be look at the passer, look at the goalie, look at the passer, and now the defender's like, oh shit, this guy actually has a plan. He's not just staring at the goalie the whole time. Like, you want people to react to what you're doing. You don't like, yes, of course, you're going to react. Like,
Yeah.
it's a fluid thing, but
Yeah.
you want to have the mindset of like, I'm dictating, I'm
Yeah.
manipulating, I'm in
Yeah.
charge 60% of the game and not, 30%
Yeah.
of the game.
We'll wrap this one up right here. As I mentioned, there was a lot more to the conversation, but I wanted to keep it somewhat digestible and condense it down a little bit to float it as a pilot project. Please stay tuned for more content. Thanks so much for watching.